Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Good morning. How y'all doing? All right. We made it this far. We're still here. Welcome to All Souls. It's a church built on covenant, not creed. We do not all think alike. We do all believe that how we live this life matters and how we treat other people matters. For those reasons, we try to treat respectfully people with differing paths and opinions, and we try to learn how to do that better over time and still stand for things that are important. Do the work to try to bring about beloved community and compassion in the world, you know. Sometimes justice looks like compassion. Anyway, we do several what we call pillars of study throughout the school year. And we try to make the worship services kind of touch on some of the same topics that they're talking about in the kids' education classes. As we move through them through the course of the year, they are Unitarian Universalist identity, Jewish Christian heritage, world religions, peace, social justice, and the interdependent web, and personal spiritual growth and development. So we are now entering the Unitarian Universalist identity portion of our school year. And so I'm going to be talking about some of that this morning, and Susan will be too in the Time for All Ages. But whoever you are, whatever your age, race, origin, orientation, background, status, ability, identity, if you care to be here with us in mutual respect, you are always welcome. Miss Susan? Oh, no, a B-pod? Do we have a? We do, but it's me doing announcements. Okay.
Which gives me a really perfect chance to say that B-pod stands for Board Person of the Day, yes, and the board of our church is made up of some incredibly thoughtful, caring people who many, in addition to very busy day jobs, do so much good work for this church. And one thing we like to do is really respond to our board members, encourage their gifts and what they want to do for the church. And one thing that our board secretary, Rovina Windsor, does not want to do is make public announcements from this microphone, and that is okay, because if y'all saw the minutes she takes, and if you have even one conversation with her and hear what a thoughtful and wise and wonderful person she is, you would know that it is so okay that she does not want to stand up and do announcements. So if you have any questions about the church or anything you want to know, she's out in the foyer and she would be happy to talk with you, and your day would be better for having had a conversation with her. My name is Susan Caldwell, and I serve the church as Director of Religious Education. And let's see, our volunteer of the month is actually in New Orleans doing some work for his job right now, I think, or at least visiting with friends, having just done some work for his job. But it's Taha Hyatt, and yeah, give it up. Taha started our local All Souls chapter of Unitarian Universalists for Justice in the Middle East, and a lot of things that you just saw on those slides that ran through, like the Yoga for Palestine that we had here last week, and many films and some of the guest speakers that we've brought in, like Nida Abu Bakr, has been because Taha reached out and made those connections. And so we just really appreciate him, and he is now he's also serving on the board of the church, and he's also done a lot in terms of planning and speaking in worship services himself. Yes? And at our national conference at General Assembly, which is one of the reasons why one of the many reasons why he gets Volunteer of the Month this month. Our giveaway the plate in relation to that is the LSUS chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine. They do a lot of really important educational and social events to kind of let people know they're not alone, especially people that have relatives in Gaza and other areas in that region. And I believe this particular money that we're raising through Giveaway the Plate will be sent for direct aid to families in Gaza. If that's not correct, I'll bring that back to you, but I believe that is what we discussed when we chose them. Building and grounds would usually be next Saturday. I need to speak with Eric first and see if that's still happening, because I know there's also a board retreat on that day where the board kind of gets together to look at the year that's passed and kind of look ahead to the year to come. And so I don't know if those two things are going to coexist on the same day. So we will find out and get back to you on that. On September 30th, there will be a house meeting training over at Grace Community Church. We are getting together with Grace and maybe some more of our neighbors to work within interfaith to try and figure out what are some of the community issues that are coming up from within our neighborhoods and our congregations. And Susan Bettinger also, who's back there in the back in the pink, is a part of that effort. And so if you would like to attend that night, again, it'll be September 30th over at Grace at 6 o'clock, right, Susan? I believe so. Yeah, I believe so, yes. And so, and we'll get more information about that out very soon. I think, what? September 21st, we are having the next vegan potluck and documentary. Right, thank you. Yes, the Peace Alliance is a group that is trying to kind of educate us and teach us that one of the important paths to peace is through our plate. It's better for us, it's better for the animals, of course, and it's better for the planet. So we hope you'll join us. You do not have to be vegan to attend. The food is really delicious, and the company is really good, and it's a very unjudgy group. Trust me. So that's everything I know, I think. Thank you.
So it's me now?
Yeah.
Highland Blessing Dinner is this week, right?
Yes, thank you. I knew there was something.
Generally, it's on the first Thursday, but we bumped it a week because of another event, and so this will be our week at Highland Blessing Dinner. And if you need to know more about that, ask anybody that's a member. You know what? We have a lot of visitors that have been coming recently, and I don't know if they know who the members are and who the visitors are, and I would really appreciate it if those who are willing and able that are members would stand so our visitors can identify you. See, so if you want to talk to someone about church stuff, that's who you talk to, except the vegan potluck. And yeah, Joy in the flowered dress is responsible for that. Well, there are a number of flowered dresses, so you can figure that one out too. All right. Let's let the pews hold us up and catch a couple of comfortable breaths. Let your head and feet get to the same place for a little bit. I have a number of readings through the service today from a Unitarian Universalist minister named Reverend John T. Crestwell. And I'm going to open with some excerpts from him. In one place in the book I was reading, he said, "I did not initially come to Unitarian Universalism to do justice work." That was not what he was looking for. He was reading a book on religions in America and was getting real depressed because he was getting towards the end of the alphabet and hadn't found anything that felt like it aligned with his position. So then he says, I read about, he got to Unitarian Universalism and it saved his life, he says. He talks about a number of authors that he went to after that. But he says, I read about a religion that did not believe in a specific creed, but upheld the worth and dignity of all human beings. I read about a religion that recognized the many truths in life and honored each religion's unique but similar message. I read about a faith that respected Buddhists and humanists, Taoists, agnostics, Christians, Muslims, and atheists alike. I read about a phenomenal faith that asked its adherents to freely find their spiritual path and celebrate the journey. A religion that honored differences, a belief system that almost exactly matched mine. I said to myself in that wonderful moment, I'm going to be a Unitarian Universalist minister. Elsewhere, he says, welcome, my friend. If you're here, it means something brought you here, to this community, to this movement we call Unitarian Universalism. Maybe it was a question, maybe a hope, maybe just a quiet whisper in your soul saying, there has to be a place for me. That was my story too. I didn't come to Unitarian Universalism because I had it all figured out. I came searching for a faith big enough to hold both my doubts and my dreams, for a spiritual home that wouldn't box me in, but would open me up. What I found here was a living tradition that values inclusivity, freedom, justice, compassion, and deep work of becoming more fully human. To me, Unitarian Universalism is not about what you have to believe. It's about how you choose to live with integrity, intention, and love. It's a space where your questions are sacred, your story matters, and your growth is welcomed. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to believe everything. You just have to come with an open heart. Welcome to Unitarian Universalism, your home. Would someone like to help me with the first part of the chalice lighting? universalism. This is the church of the open mind. This is the church of the helping hands. This is the church of the loving heart. Together, with mind, hands, and heart, we care for the earth and for each other. Thank you. We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism, yes. But we also light this chalice as a beacon of hope, the symbol for truth, and a flame of connection. May it guide our hearts, ignite our purpose, and remind us we are not alone. Would you please rise in body or spirit and say the unison affirmation with me? Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve human need to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the sacred. Thus do we covenant with each other. Our opening hymn is We Are on a Journey. I should have had this over for her. That's not good. Oh well. We are on a journey still together. Here we stand, strong and proud to be a voice of freedom in our land, where every person matters, where each vote counts the same. We search for truth in history, our own lives and discovery. We are on a journey, the universal quest, the Church of Unitarian Universalists. We are on a journey still in fairness we unite, for justice and compassion for each human that's alive, accepting each one's different, respecting nature's web that keeps us all connected, so we value every thread. We are on a journey, the universal quest, the Church of Unitarian Universalists. Thank you. Please be seated. Okay. That's a good little stool.
Does it still work? Yeah, I can stand there.
You can do whatever.
Okay. Shall we dance? Good morning again. As Reverend Barbara said earlier, we're going to be talking a little bit about our faith tradition, our history as a faith tradition. And so in a very short, simple almost simplistic way, let me just tell you why we have an 11-syllable name. Our Unitarian side comes from, first of all, they come from two heresies in the early Christian church. We had a guest preacher one time here who said, if you want to know about Unitarian Universalists, go back to the history of the Christian church, follow the heretics all the way down, and that's us. We are the ones who teach our children the word heresy in a positive note because it comes from the Greek meaning to choose. And we feel like even if you have grown up in this faith from birth, it's a chosen faith. You choose it every day. I mean, and some people will say it chose me, but that choosing goes on all the time. And historically, on the Unitarian side, the Unitarians believed in one God. They did not accept the doctrine of the Trinity. The Universalists believed in universal salvation. And at that time, in the history of the church, it was if Jesus came to save anybody, he came to save everybody. It's already done. Now, some people will say we've gotten away from that. My thinking is, no, we've done the natural evolution. We've done the natural expansion of those two theologies. Now, you're going to talk to Unitarian Universalists. It's a feature, not a bug, that we're not of one mind on these things. So you may talk to someone else that said, no, we don't do that anymore. I believe we just do the expanded version of that if there's one holy source, if there is one source, whatever you believe about that, whatever you believe about the ultimate, whether you call it God, whether you call it the universe, whether you call it the ground of our being, the source and spirit of all life, and wherever you think that comes from. Does it come from above? Does it come from within? Is it all of the above? You belong here. You belong here. Universalism, if everyone is saved as far as the afterlife is concerned, and we have all kinds of different views about that, about the afterlife and if there is and what it is. But if everyone is saved, then that means no one can be separated from the holy, from the divine, however you define that, from God. And so I tell you all that very briefly to tell you that today I'm talking about a man named Hosea Ballou, and he was born at the tail end of the 18th century, but he was basically a 19th century Universalist preacher and theologian. And for a lot of his life, he was an itinerant preacher, meaning he traveled in New England. He traveled around, and he would do kind of Universalist revivals, basically. He would speak at tent meetings. He would speak in different churches. And people would come to hear this message of an all-loving God and the source of life that loved everyone. And so Hosea Ballou, as it happened, he was in a town in New England, and he was staying with a farmer. And the farmer confided in him about his son. The farmer said, preacher, I'm so worried about my son. He drinks all the time. He goes into town every night. He's with all kinds of women. He's so bad. And I'm just worried that he's going to go to hell. And Hosea Ballou said, okay, well, how about let's gather up a little wood. We know he's in town, but we know he'll be coming home. He comes home on that path over there, right? And the farmer goes, yeah. He goes, okay, let's get us some wood. Let's go ahead and just build us a fire. And when he comes home, we'll just throw him into it, and you'll be done with it. And the farmer's horrified. Here's this pastor, this preacher, this man of God, saying that, we should just go ahead and burn your son alive. He goes, I can't do that. I love my son. I know he's sinful and he's got a lot of faults, but I love him. You can't do that. And Hosea Ballou says, if you, a human father, love your son so much that you couldn't possibly throw him in a fire, then why do you think God, the most perfect father, the most perfect parent, would do that? It's a good question, isn't it? And so that's the message. That's the message we give you. It's a message we give. Whatever you believe about that ultimate source, you cannot be separated from love. You feel pretty good about that? Feel okay about that? Thank you so much. And the children and youth to their class. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
It's nice to see a herd leave. Not that we wouldn't want them here. The readings for the meditation come from three pretty varied sources. They don't necessarily dovetail into one another, but I want to share all three of them anyway. The first is from Mary Eddies. She says, "Here we are, gathered humanists and Christian, non-theist, Buddhist and Jew, pagan and seeker, a Unitarian Universalist congregation. Let us confess what we know to be true. We're quick to proclaim our faith, but slow to live the teachings of that faith as it has been handed down to us across every generation, from prophets, preachers and sages, scientists, historians, and poets. Great thinkers of every age, from ordinary men and women who would have us understand what it is to be and what it is to love the neighbor. We're quick to judge one another, but slow to act for justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. We're quick to ignore or smooth over broken places among us, too fearful to work for peace and healing. Reconciliation, I'll add there. We're quick to share our knowledge, but slow to temper that knowledge with the love and wisdom that leads us always closer to the truth. In small and large ways, we are overwhelmed by all we cannot do. For all the times we fail to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, when we do not affirm and promote the goal of a world community with peace and liberty and justice for all, when we live as though interdependence were a personal choice and not a fact of our existence, we ask forgiveness of one another, and we vow to begin again in this and every moment." This is from Erica Hewitt, who begins with a John Powell quote, "White people have the luxury of not having to think about race. That's a benefit of being white, of being part of the dominant group. The system works for you, and you don't have to think about it." She goes on, "Last Saturday, I strolled past a yard sale, browsing a table piled high with Halloween costumes, feather boas, silly hats, and the like. I spotted a Rastafarian hat with black dreadlocks attached. When you're white, as I am, you don't always notice systemic racism. When you do, it can be hard to know what to do. The wig bothered me. Race and ethnicity aren't something for white people to dress up as. I moved on, though, both distracted by the errand I was running and unsure of what to do about the wig. This wasn't the first time, and I'm afraid it won't be the last, that inaction seemed easier than awkwardly talking about racism with white strangers. But some hard things are important to do anyway, and my silence haunted me for the next hour, finally sending me back to the yard sale, or rather to the post-yard sale activity of bagging up leftovers. I know you're packing up, but I need to buy that dreadlock wig to take it out of circulation, I said. Annoyed, one woman put her hands on her hips. Why? Because being black is not a costume, I blurted out. I'm not criticizing you for having it. I just believe that it perpetuates racism. Well, it's already packed, and I don't know where it is. Would you please let me find it? I have all afternoon, and I promise I'll rebag everything. Her friend came over. I know which bag it's in, she said, clearly uncomfortable. As we walked to a stack of bags, I felt an intense urge to apologize. I'm not trying to make you bad or wrong for having the wig. Someone gave it to me as a gift, she defended herself. I've never worn it. She thrust the wig at me. I thanked her, introduced myself as her neighbor, and took the wig home, half victorious and half cringing. That wasn't the first time that I've done the right thing in a clumsy way. It won't be the last. But it was practice. Practice at recognizing racism and owning whiteness. And what we practice grows stronger. Sometimes we need to remind ourselves to extend our inclusivity to those with theological ideas different from our own. The Unitarian Church of Transylvania, also known as the Hungarian Unitarian Church, is a non-Trinitarian Christian denomination of the Unitarian tradition. It's based in the city of Cluj, Transylvania, Romania, and it was founded by Unitarian preacher and theologian Ferenc David, who we often call Francis David, and who is responsible for the quote that we use sometimes in our opening, "We need not think alike to love alike." That was Francis David or Ferenc David. That branch of Unitarianism is not part of the Unitarian Universalist Association. The Unitarian Church of Transylvania is the oldest continuing Unitarian denomination in the world. It has a majority Hungarian following and is one of the 18 religious denominations given official recognition by the government of Romania. Like I said, it's not part of the Unitarian Universalist Association that we are affiliated with. But the UUA acknowledges its shared history and roots with the Unitarian movement in Transylvania. After the fall of communism, the UUA, Unitarian Universalist Association, established partner churches to provide support for Unitarian congregations in Transylvania. The following blessings are from their tradition. I am a Unitarian. I live and work in this faith. Jesus is my guide and God is my help. We humans are all siblings. Our law is one: love. The goal of our work is shared. Happy are those of God's kingdom. Where there is faith, there is love. Where there is love, there is peace. Where there is peace, there is blessing. Where there is blessing, there is God. And where there is God is all we need. I want us to be mindful of our response to hearing some of that language in our congregation. After the moment of quiet, anyone who cares to come light a candle for a concern or a joy is welcome to do that. Long as I can remember, there were only two ways to go. One was along the old school highway, the other was the wrong road. But some things come clearer as I fill another page. The right to be yourself and happy are gifts that God gave. Let us dance for love while we search for the truth. May God bless us, everyone, in the folly of our youth. May we find our way to be our own, and that there's no angry Father waiting when we get home. Best I can determine, all this shame, guilt, and brimstone were dreamed up by an ancient council, afraid our dreams would roam. But before I come full circle, and the old school is then mine, I'd like a chance to leave the children a God that is love and kind. Let us dance for love while we search for the truth. May God bless us, everyone, in the folly of our youth. May we find our way to be our own, and that there's no angry Father waiting when we get home. The song that I played for the candle lighting is one that I wrote around 1989. The language in it is not typical of our services much anymore here, but back then, some 35 or so years ago, it was pretty middle of the road theology for this congregation. That was still some, 7 years before I began working for this congregation, which I think happened around 1996. For me, the language in the song, specifically the references to God, eventually became a bit too narrow, not because of my own definition of God, but because of the understanding so many other people carried for that word. It seemed to have an increasingly uncomfortable effect on some of the membership and resistance. Here at All Souls, we've gone through waves of awakening and awareness over the 30-some-odd years I've been here. And before I go any further, let me acknowledge that others here within this congregation would most probably interpret everything I'm about to say a different way. I'm talking about my experience and how I felt or interpreted things that happened here along the way. As best I understand it, All Souls had already gone through several significant phases before I ever became a part of it. And I don't know that I would have been comfortable with those or stuck around for some of them. Still, about the time I became a member, there was a developing and tremendously robust women's community here. A group that was very active and visible all across the city. We hosted some of the YWCA Celebration of Women Week stuff. They hosted back then, Unitarian Universalism in America was divided into districts. Ours included 5 states, and All Souls Shreveport hosted a 5-state women's conference. We hosted some of the very first gay pride events in Shreveport. We hosted 2 or 3 of the first World Religion Day events in Shreveport. Through our engagement with what was initially North Louisiana Interfaith, we began to learn more about how clumsy we had been in our well-intended efforts to ally with those working for civil rights and human rights and against systemic racism and systems of oppression across the board. And then we also were trying to address religious abuse. A lot of people that were becoming members had been through systems that gave them strong reason to back away from some of the traditional language and some of the traditional rituals. And when I say traditional, I was mistakenly using that word narrowly for mainstream Christianity, and that's certainly not all of the traditions that are represented here. As conservative, more mainstream Christian traditions moved farther right, I personally, and somewhat consequently, we as a congregation, I personally and we as a congregation, because and part of my doing, we began to back away from language that felt tainted and others utterly exclusive and narrow definitions. Parenthetically, when I use the word God, I'm not talking about Santa Claus in the sky. I'm not talking about a white male, bearded whatever, an anthropomorphized other. When I use the word, I'm talking about the numinous that surrounds me and encompasses me and includes me. But there's also another aspect that, for me, is separate from that, that's palpable and relational, and it's part of my experience, and it's a very important part of my experience to me. And I often avoid talking about that. And other times I don't. I know that I mention it enough that people who have not had those kinds of experiences can start rolling their eyes. But I believe there is something generative from before the beginnings of our knowledge and beyond our comprehension or the limits of our experience. That's what I call God. Anyway, I started to try to find and employ words for the great mystery and the spirit of life, the ever-unfolding ground of our being, that didn't prompt negative responses from anyone in the congregation. Given that not everyone has experienced the holy in the same way, that's tough to do. Again, speaking only for myself and my personal experience, those expressions can fall short and feel devoid of the presence that I turn to and count on in a lot of ways. That's me. Like I said, there's something palpable and relatable with which I have a relationship. And when I was going through my little stint with what I will call minor cancer, there were interactions that I don't expect anybody else to believe that were essential for me and formative in my response to treatment. Anyway, mostly I don't name it, but it is a beloved and necessary part of my personal spiritual life. I wish I could give that kind of a connection to everybody in here because it's grounding and it's restorative and it creates, pardon the alliteration, Bennett, connection, comfort, confidence, and other things. But I can't give that to anybody. Trying to avoid offending others, I fear I may have overcorrected. I've watered down ideas that are part of my truth. And I don't know that I have done us any favor by staying so far away from language that most of my neighbors understand better than a lot of language that I would use trying to explain things. And if I want to communicate with my neighbors, not only do I need to find my way to make peace with some of that language, I need to be adept at employing it in finding our commonality as humans. And I'm not talking about faking it till you make it, and I'm not talking about being disingenuous. I'm talking about what we often in this congregation call our universal translator. Over time in our studies, hopefully, we develop a capacity to not have a knee-jerk response to words that have previously triggered us. Because when we have those knee-jerk responses, we can't serve love, which remains the center and the doctrine of this church. Anyway, I believe the reflexive verb is functions well in a sentence from John, 1 John, that God is love. Reflexive meaning love is God. Because I also believe that transcendent universal love is as substantive and is an adequate substitute for the word God, I use love a lot. Let me again share some words from Reverend John Crestwell as he talks about his arrival in Unitarian Universalism. Religious liberalism was thriving then, matching the 1950s post-World War II optimism, a belief that humanity could defeat evil and prosper. Hitler was dead. Nazism was destroyed. But as we know, liberalism didn't go deep enough. It failed to fully include black and brown people. Reverend Dr. King often spoke about his disappointment with liberalism's over-optimism and its lack of theological response to the evils of racism. He attended the church in D.C. that A. Powell Davies ministered for a long time, and he said, Dr. Davies preached, "We are a religion that proclaims that humanity is not divided, except by ignorance and prejudice and hate." But these were aspirational words, calling us to grow up. Unitarian Universalism, like other institutions, has been exclusive and prejudiced. So we cannot yet claim to be the free church where everybody, regardless of race or socioeconomic status, can come to worship in spirit and truth. Not yet. And that's our work today, to be radically welcoming, to share our message more broadly with those seeking a faith that strives for greatness. We are each called to be stewards of a living tradition, embracing the high ideals and committing to radical acceptance. We're called to welcome the stranger, manifest love in all of its forms, and embody our values in all we do. So why come to be a part of this faith tradition? Or why do you choose this religion? Or what moved you to embrace the call of religious freedom? Why has Unitarian Universalism drawn you to this community or this transformative work? For me, there's a scripture that says it all, and he quotes Luke 12:48. Of those to whom much is given, much is required. This faith gives me purpose, and it saved my life. So I feel called to give back, to offer my time, talents, and treasures, because with great freedom comes great responsibility. To be part of a tradition that prides itself on religious freedom is a rare gift in a world dominated by fundamentalism. I want to preserve this faith, this church, and this community because it is a vital voice in a world of polarization and division. Our closing hymn is "I'm on My Way." Would you please rise in body or spirit? Remembering that the universe is so much larger than our ability to comprehend, let us go forth from this time together with the resolve to stop trying to reduce the incomprehensible to our own petty expectations, so that wonder, that sense of what's sacred, can find space to open our minds and illuminate our lives. From Reverend Tom Shade, there is a power at work in the universe. It works through human hands, but was not made by human hands. It is a creative, sustaining, and transforming power that we can trust, for that power is in our lives. It will sustain us whenever we take a stand on the side of love, whenever we take a stand for peace and justice, whenever we take a risk. We are together held by that power. May we honor the responsibility of our freedom. May we keep our hearts open to the lessons of the Spirit across time, across evolution, across the changes in our own lives. May we go in peace, be kind to one another, be a force for love in a hurting and hurtful world. Remember the world's beauty and remember your own beauty. Ashe, amen, so be it.
Here in reverence now